In today's presentation, we will look at several different factors of what the culture was like in America during the 1920s, also known as the Roaring Twenties. During this time period, there were several changes in American culture. These changes unleashed a new age of prosperity for the nation. New rights and norms for women, the musical age, also known as the Jazz Age, and the African American contribution to it, as well as the flourishing economy and consumerism, were all factors that contributed to the cultural shift and new urban way of life during what we know as the Roaring Twenties. In the 1920s, there was a new free spirit attitude that was held by women. Women in the 1920s were considered a staple to the new freedoms that women had. The flapper was a slang term used to describe women in the 1920s who embraced a new lifestyle. A lifestyle that pushed the barriers in their economic, political, and sexual freedoms. Many believed that this was an outrageous way for a woman to live. They smoked, drank alcohol, wore lots of makeup, and fancied more scandalous dresses. During this time, the 19th Amendment was passed, giving women the right to vote, which contributed to the independent lifestyle that women held. Following this, the Equal Rights Amendment was proposed by Alice Paul in 1923. World War I was over, and men wanted their jobs back. Women, though, who had joined the workforce while the men were at war, had tasted the possibility of life beyond homemaking and weren't ready to relinquish their jobs. For women, personal fulfillment and independence became priorities, a more modern, carefree spirit where anything seemed possible. The free spirit attitude of the 1920s spiked a musical era which we know as the Jazz Age. It was a cultural period during the Roaring Twenties that consisted of a new jazz style of music and dance. African Americans greatly contributed to the flourish of this movement. They provided new musical techniques and traditions which elevated entertainment in the United States during this time. It was not confined to just African American culture. America's white middle class also embraced the Jazz Age. This age is known for its contribution to the diversity and the overlap of cultures during the Roaring Twenties. America during the 20s was greatly exposed to consumerism. Consumerism in the 1920s was the idea that Americans should continue to buy product and goods in outrageous numbers. In this copy of a newspaper article, you see the headline, "Buy, buy, buy." They began to change their values on what it was that they spent their earnings on. Exposure to new makeup products, clothing items, credit lines, household machinery, automobiles, affordable radios all changed the living styles of many of the American people. American consumerism spiked greatly during the Roaring Twenties because of the technical advances and innovative ideas and inventions in the areas of communication and transportation. Americans moved from the traditional avoidance of debt to the concept of buying goods on credit installments. Mass advertising and marketing in the 1920s newspapers and radio programs also had a massive increase in sales due to this easy consumer credit. Prohibition was a time period in the 1920s where the manufacture, transportation, and sale of alcohol was illegal. Early 1900s, alcohol was seen as a destructive force within families and general society. It was also a waste of grain during wartime. This new, racy, urban lifestyle did not seemingly go hand in hand with prohibition. This made the enforcement of this law very difficult. A societal term known as speakeasies were stores and nightclubs which sold alcohol illegally. This encouraged the rise of criminal activity, as those who wanted to continue to drink had to find new, inventive ways around this law.